During a live interview, Taehyung drops a shocking truth that forces Jimmy Fallon to halt the show. What secret was too dangerous for live TV? You don't know what they did to Jungkook, do you? The words fell like broken glass onto the glossy studio floor. For a moment, the laughter and applause in Studio 6B froze mid-air. The camera didn't cut. The applause sign flickered once, as if unsure whether to keep pretending everything was fine. Jimmy Fallon blinked. He glanced toward the control room behind the glass wall. No direction came through the earpiece. The crew stood rigid behind their consoles, eyes wide, one hand frozen mid-gesture on a slider. A tension twisted in the air, sudden and viscous, like the moment before a lightning strike. Taehyung sat still, his face unreadable. Not the charming V the world adored, not the stage performer who could light up a stadium with a single wink. This Taehyung had a steel edge in his gaze, a quiet storm roiling behind his eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't explain. Jimmy cleared his throat. Wait, what do you mean by that? Taehyung leaned forward, voice low, but the mic caught every syllable. You invited me here to talk about our comeback, but no one talks about what happened in Switzerland, about why Jungkook disappeared for 12 days. You all pretended it was a vacation. A nervous chuckle rippled from somewhere in the audience. Jimmy looked toward the producer again. The red live sign glowed above them. Sweat bloomed on Jimmy's brow. This wasn't a planned segment. This was a detour into dangerous territory. Taehyung's fingers drummed once on the arm of his chair. He had that same look he wore in the teaser for their last album, Half Fury, Half Sorrow. He came back with burns on his wrists and scars that weren't there before. Jimmy raised both hands, palms out. Taehyung, I don't think... You don't have to think, Taehyung said calmly. You just have to listen. The people watching need to hear this. There was movement near the camera rig. A security staff member whispered into his collar mic. One of the stage managers was already making a hand signal to cut the feed, but it was too late. Millions were already watching, streaming, recording. The internet was faster than any censorship protocol. Jimmy Fallon, pale now, forced to smile. We can talk off air if... They're watching because it's live. Taehyung's eyes flicked to the camera. You want to know what happened to Jungkook? He wasn't the first. The screen behind them, meant to display a looping montage of BTS's music videos, flickered suddenly static for half a second, then an image, a corridor, cold, metallic. Surveillance camera timestamp in the corner. A silhouette dragged by two figures in black. Audience members gasped. The broadcast didn't cut. Instead, the image on the screen changed again. A folder, labeled in Korean. Inside, photos, documents, medical scans, sound bites. Jimmy Fallon stood up. We're ending this now, he snapped, but his voice trembled. Taehyung remained seated, watching him. They said Jungkook signed an NDA, that he was just overworked. But you should ask yourself, why did Jimin disappear for 3 weeks the year before? Why did our manager suddenly resign and leave the country? The silence was thick now. Not the polite kind of pause. The air inside the studio felt wrong, as if the walls were listening. The producer's voice screamed through the earpiece, "Cut the goddamn feed!" But the cameras kept rolling. Jimmy yanked out his earpiece. We're done, he said, his face flushed, fear seeping through the cracks of his showman's smile. We're done here. Shut it down. Taehyung stood. The studio lights shifted ever so slightly. Audience murmurs turned into low panic. Someone in the back row stood and shouted, "He's telling the truth!" Security began moving in. Taehyung didn't resist. He held up both hands slowly but kept his eyes locked on the camera. If you're watching this, he said, they'll try to make me disappear next. Remember that. Jimmy turned to the screen behind them. The images were gone. Static returned. But for millions of viewers, the footage was already clipped, saved, uploaded, translated. And for the first time in his career, Jimmy Fallon ended a live broadcast not with a joke, but by walking off set mid-interview, leaving a member of the world's biggest band standing alone beneath the harsh, hot lights, his truth ringing louder than any applause. The air outside NBC studios reeked of exhaust, rain, and a rising panic only half understood. The crowd had grown exponentially within minutes of the broadcast's abrupt cut. Fans, journalists, conspiracy bloggers, live streamers, they all flocked to the entrance like bloodhounds chasing the scent of something forbidden. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Inside a narrow corridor on the third floor, Taehyung leaned against the concrete wall, flanked by two men in black suits who weren't part of NBC security. His wrists were free, but his freedom wasn't real. He could feel it in the silence around him. They hadn't handcuffed him. They didn't need to. Whatever was coming next would not require restraints. "Where's my manager?" Taehyung asked calmly. No response. He tilted his head toward the taller one. "Are you going to kill me in here or drag me to some off-grid basement?" Still nothing. He sighed and muttered under his breath in Korean, "Cowards." A door opened at the end of the hallway. A woman in a slate gray suit stepped through, heels clicking, eyes sharp and unreadable behind thin-rimmed glasses. She was American, but fluent in Korean. Taehyung recognized her from a backstage negotiation years ago in LA. A fixer, a professional cleaner. Government-affiliated, though which branch remained a mystery even to his label's legal team. "You made quite the mess tonight," she said evenly. Taehyung didn't flinch. "Good. Maybe they'll finally listen." "They're already listening," she replied, folding her arms, "and scrubbing." "Too late," he said with a dry smile. "It's everywhere now." She narrowed her eyes. "You think this is a movie?" "No," Taehyung said, stepping forward, "but the last act's about to start." Half a world away, Jungkook was staring at the same footage from a hotel room in Tokyo, hands trembling around a mug of untouched tea. The grainy image of himself being dragged down that hallway, he hadn't even known that footage existed. The old trauma cracked open like a bone still healing. He didn't remember the entire 12 days. He remembered the walls, the cold floor, the sound of footsteps that never approached, only circled. He remembered screaming, gagged and unheard. He remembered needles, voices through speakers, someone saying, "We're not hurting you, we're preparing you." The tea spilled when his hand jerked. A knock on the door snapped him out of the spiral. "Who is it?" he asked in Korean. Silence. He stood slowly, cautiously. Another knock. He reached for the drawer beside the bed, hand closing around the pepper spray he'd carried since Switzerland. He approached the door and pressed his eye to the peephole. No one. Then a voice. "It's me! Jimin!" Jungkook hesitated. Jimin had disappeared too last year, vanished during the Macau trip, only to return with the thinnest of excuses. At the time, no one asked questions. The fans had chalked it up to mental health leave. Management called it creative space. But Jungkook saw it now, the same haunted shadow in Jimin's voice. He opened the door slowly. Jimin looked like a ghost. Pale, exhausted, trembling. He pushed inside, shut the door quickly, and turned all the lights off. "I saw it," he whispered. "Everyone's seen it." Jungkook stared. "Did you know he was going to do it?" "No," Jimin said. "But I think it's the only way." Jungkook dropped into the chair. "They'll come for him." They already have. Meanwhile, the internet was boiling over. On Twitter, Taehyung Exposed trended alongside Freevee and Fallon Shutdown. TikTok was a minefield of reaction videos, amateur decoding, wild theories. Reddit threads exploded with archived screenshots and deep dives. Army fandom fractured, half panicked, half ready to riot. The Tonight Show issued a brief statement calling the incident unexpected and under review. Jimmy Fallon had gone radio silent. Some said he'd left the building with his family under escort. Others claimed he was being detained, that his phone had been confiscated. NBC denied all of it. But the silence felt louder than the truth. Back in the NBC building, Taehyung was taken to a room lined with black acoustic panels. No cameras, no microphones he could see, but he knew they were there. The woman returned. "You want to burn everything down," she said. "Why?" Taehyung met her gaze. "Because I almost did." "Explain." He inhaled slowly. Switzerland wasn't the first time. It was just the time they got caught. Her face didn't change. Go on. They made us agree to a medical trial, said it was sponsored by the Ministry of Culture. Safe, voluntary. He laughed once, hollow. We signed like good soldiers, but it wasn't just injections, it was programming. You're suggesting... I'm telling you, he snapped. They wanted to optimize us, make us perform longer, sleep less, obey more. Mind control? He gave her a sharp look. You say it like it's fiction, but if I gave you the names, the labs, the scientist who faked his death in Busan, you'd be on a plane in an hour. You're digging your own grave, she said coldly. I've already been buried once, Taehyung whispered. I dug my way out to scream. The door opened again. This time, someone unexpected entered Bang Si-hyuk, the chairman of HYBE, the man they once called Hitman Bang, dressed impeccably, calm, as if this were a routine investor meeting. Taehyung, he said softly. Let's talk privately. Taehyung stood, his jaw clenched. Don't you dare pretend to care. Bang sighed. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly, Taehyung said. You sold us, not to a label, to something darker. You think you're exposing evil, Bang said, walking closer. But you're only exposing yourself to forces you cannot beat. They tried to erase Jungkook, Taehyung said. Now I'll erase you. Bang leaned in. If you take this further, there won't be a country left for you to return to. Taehyung met his gaze, steady and defiant. Then let it all burn. In Seoul, Namjoon stared at the terminal screen in front of him. The feed had been taken down, every repost deleted, every mirror erased by digital security firms working overtime. But he had it. The full footage. Downloaded, saved, protected behind layers of encryption. He looked up as Yoongi entered the studio. He did it, Namjoon said softly. Yoongi closed the door and sat across from him. And now we have to finish it. You know what that means, Namjoon said. Yoongi nodded. We come clean. All of it. Yoongi's expression was a mixture of dread and resolution. They'll come for us. They already are. By nightfall, emergency meetings were being held in government offices in Seoul, Washington, and Geneva. Agencies scrambled to contain the fallout. Files were pulled, servers wiped. But the virus had spread. The truth had slipped through the cracks like smoke. It was only a matter of time before someone lit the match. Back in Tokyo, Jungkook turned to Jimin. Do you remember what they made us do in that room? Jimin closed his eyes. I remember everything. Then we need to tell them, all of it. Jimin opened his phone and began typing. Across the world, 1 million screens flickered to life. Not from Taehyung this time, but from Jungkook. A live stream, shaky at first. His face filled the screen, tired but defiant. He spoke directly into the camera. My name is Jungkook. I'm a member of BTS, and for the first time, I want to tell you what really happened when I disappeared. The truth began to pour. And the world finally listened. Do you remember the White Room? Jungkook's voice, barely above a whisper, cracked as it left his throat. He sat in the same hotel chair, eyes hollow, hands shaking visibly on camera. The livestream had gone live only 90 seconds earlier, but the viewer count was already pushing 4 million and climbing. Jimin stood behind the camera, silent, not speaking, but standing in full support, his shadow cast long against the back wall of the room. I was told it was a recovery center, Jungkook continued, a facility for mental rest, but there were no windows, no clocks, just silence, just Taehyung. His lips trembled. He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow and looked straight into the lens. They put something in the IVs. It made me forget names, faces, made me forget why I was even scared. For a while, I thought I was dead. I even hoped I was. Thousands of comments poured in, flooding the stream. Most were crying emojis, pleas to stop, accusations against HYBE, the Korean government, even the American entertainment industry. But there were others, darker ones, written in broken Korean and stiff English. Threats, oblique warnings, mentions of Protocol Iris. Jungkook ignored them all. I wasn't alone in there. I heard someone crying through the wall. Later, I found out it was Jimin. The camera wobbled slightly, Jimin's hand tightening. I was gone for 12 days, but for me, it felt like months. They showed us images flashing, disorienting, repeating until we stopped reacting. They told us we were special, that this was to protect our future. His voice cracked again, a ragged breath catching in his chest. But they were programming us. We were being recalibrated for compliance. The door to the hotel room burst open. A sharp scream off camera. Then, static. The stream went dead. Back in Seoul, the silence following that abrupt blackout reverberated like a thunderclap. Inside a recording studio at HYBE headquarters, Namjoon stood up so suddenly he knocked over his chair. Yoongi grabbed his phone. Hoseok, who had only just returned from LA, stared in disbelief at the black screen. They cut him off, Namjoon said. No, Yoongi replied grimly. They got him. Taehyung, now under what was diplomatically called protective observation, had been moved to an undisclosed location. But Namjoon had a burner phone. Taehyung's last message had been one line. If the stream cuts, don't run, tell the rest. Yoongi was already packing a hard drive into a waterproof case. We go tonight, all of us, before they decide we're liabilities. Where's Jin? Hoseok asked. He's supposed to be back from duty. Namjoon hesitated. He messaged me 2 days ago. Told me not to trust our lawyer anymore. Yoongi and Hoseok both stiffened. Someone flipped? Hoseok asked. Someone was always planted, Namjoon said. We just didn't see it. Later that night, the 5 remaining members met in a private apartment in Itaewon, one they'd used before the fame, before the chaos. It smelled faintly of old ramen and dust, but it was secure. It was theirs. Taehyung appeared on a secure video call, his face weary but alive. There were bruises along his neck and what looked like a healing cut above his eye. They took Jungkook and Jimin, he said without preamble, but they didn't expect them to send the footage before the stream. I got the backup. Namjoon nodded. We'll release it. No, Taehyung said. We'll premiere it. The room went silent. Yoongi was the first to speak. You want us to broadcast it? As what, performance art? No, Taehyung said. As confession. All of us. Together. In one shot. One stage. The truth. Their lawyers will eat us alive, Hoseok said. They can't sue a revolution, Namjoon replied. They can only try to stop it. Taehyung looked down, then met their eyes again. You don't know everything. Not yet. There's one more thing I haven't told you. He took a breath. I think Jin knew what they were doing. Years ago, I think he went into the military early to escape them. The room turned cold. Namjoon shook his head. No, Jin would have told us. Would he? Taehyung asked. Or would he have protected us by staying quiet? A week passed in a blur. News cycles twisted reality into a tangled mess of denial and deflection. HYBE claimed the live stream was a hoax. NBC released doctored footage of the Fallon interview. Government spokespeople denied the existence of any conditioning program, dismissed Taehyung's claims as stress-related delusion. But Army wasn't fooled. Digital warriors around the globe began a new campaign, Project Mirror. They gathered every possible fragment of footage, audio, metadata. Decentralized platforms replaced censored channels. Hacktivists in Berlin and Seoul broke through firewalls, retrieving deleted files and leaked emails. Evidence mounted, slowly, like snow piling on a weak roof. Until it collapsed. A hacker under the alias Zero Mirror released a classified document from the Korean Ministry of Strategic Culture. The title page read, Idle Cognitive Compliance Initiative, Phase 4, BTS Prototype Integration. It was signed by a man whose name was blacked out, but the initials beneath were not. JF. Jimmy Fallon. The revelation detonated across the internet. The man who had cut the interview. The man who had walked off stage. The man who had tried to act surprised. He wasn't a victim. He was a handler. The betrayal sent shockwaves through every media outlet. Fallon's show was suspended. He disappeared from the public eye within hours. And that was when Jin called. Not a message, not a text. A live video feed, secure, direct. He looked different, leaner, older, but his eyes, the gentle steadiness behind them were the same. "I'm sorry," Jin said. "I should have told you everything." "Where are you?" Namjoon asked. "A safe house, off the grid. I've been feeding intel to a European journalist for months." "You knew?" Hoseok said, stunned. "I found out in 2019, Jin said. When I was given a different medical exam before the Map of the Soul tour, they injected something. It made me sick. I hacked the files, I saw the experiments." "Why didn't you tell us?" Taehyung asked through clenched teeth. Jin's voice cracked. "Because I didn't want you to stop. I didn't want you to look down. We were flying too high. You let them hurt us. I tried to fight from inside." "Bullshit," Yoongi spat. "I know," Jin whispered, "and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." "Then help us," Namjoon said. "Come back, join the premiere." Jin closed his eyes. "They'll kill me if I step foot in Seoul." "Then we'll come to you," Taehyung said. "We'll bring the premiere to you." They rented a theater in Amsterdam under an alias, booked anonymously. Army spread the word in secret channels. Only those who had cracked the puzzle were invited. It was not a concert. It was not a comeback. It was a reckoning. All seven stood together again. On stage, no lights, no choreography, just truth. They took turns speaking. Taehyung about the programs, Jungkook about the experiments, Jimin about the psychological breaks, Hoseok about the night he found a hidden file in their choreography logs, Yoongi about the deleted lyrics he'd been forced to rewrite, Namjoon about the silences, Jin about the betrayal he'd buried. They ended it with a video. The full footage. Uncut. And when the last frame played, the screen went black. Then a single line appeared. "You watched us perform, now watch us fight." The crowd stood in stunned silence. Then someone screamed, followed by applause, followed by sirens. The revolution had begun. "You need to get out of there now." Namjoon's voice tore through the radio static as chaos erupted in the Amsterdam theater. The audience had just witnessed the full, unfiltered footage, Jungkook's limp body dragged down a sterilized hallway, Taehyung's confrontation on live television, the digital trails of altered medical files and suppressed identities, and now, it was as if every consequence detonated at once. The walls echoed with footsteps, screams, and the distinct click of boots on marble. Outside, sirens howled like the first breath of a collapsing regime. Jin stood near the back exit, gripping a burner phone in one hand and a drive in the other. He was watching them, his brothers rushing to get off the stage, shielding their faces from the light as the building shuddered under the weight of a world now listening. Jungkook had already slipped through the left-wing exit with a civilian disguise. Hoodie, mask, the face of every man and no one. Jimin held Yoongi's hand like they were back in a green room 10 years ago, hiding from fans with laughter, not agents. "Go," Jin hissed into the mic. "We split now. Rendezvous at Tiergarten, 200 hours. "Copy," said Namjoon. "Hyung, if we don't." "You will." Then the connection died. The doors exploded inward. A unit of masked individuals stormed the theater, not police. No insignias, no warnings, weapons, yes, but no mercy. The last footage from inside that night was a fan's live stream. The screen shook violently, a woman screamed, and the final image before the phone fell was Taehyung's face bruised, lit by fire escape red and defiant. Then, black. And silence across all networks. The broadcast had triggered a global security lockdown. Korean embassies shut down their public communication lines. Several governments issued neutral statements about ongoing international investigations into cyber breaches. But beneath the surface, private flights were grounded, surveillance programs flicked into overdrive, and elite teams were activated across Seoul, Tokyo, Washington, Berlin. What had started as a confession had evolved into a digital insurgency. Every major fan account that reposted the footage was targeted. Several users in Jakarta and London were visited by agents. A Brazilian teenager who wrote a viral essay about BTS's cultural weaponization disappeared en route to school. Reddit threads vanished. Discord servers were nuked. The digital war had begun, and the first casualties were silence. But something unexpected happened. The fans didn't run. They organized. They encrypted. They adapted. The army resistance, as they came to be called in whispers and firewalls, was unlike anything the intelligence world had ever seen. They didn't fight with weapons, they fought with bandwidth. With VPNs, botnets, blockchain storage, and code. They flooded the net with mirrors of the footage, hidden in K-pop fan cams and music files. They overran propaganda hashtags with lyrics, performance edits, and pixelated evidence. They created an algorithm that attached hidden metadata to photos of the members, linking users to the original manifesto. Every takedown birthed 10 more copies. Every silenced fan spawned 20 anonymous accounts. Hybe issued a formal statement claiming the members were resting after a traumatic hacking event. The statement included alleged apologies, fake photos of the group smiling in a villa. But the fans weren't fooled. They analyzed the shadows. The date stamps, the reflection in Taehyung's eye. It was a deep fake. Meanwhile, in Berlin, Namjoon stood inside a concrete bunker built during the Cold War, now repurposed into a digital fortress. Next to him, Hoseok pored over decrypted messages, each more horrifying than the last. They were cataloging us, Hoseok whispered. Our habits, our rhythms. Every time we deviated from the optimized behavior, they logged it. Namjoon clenched his fists. We were never artists to them. We were an experiment. Asset class, cultural weapon. Hoseok read aloud from one file. Deployed globally, monitored per performance, memory review after major live event. What the hell is a memory review? Yoongi answered from behind them. His voice was quiet, broken. It means after concerts they erased parts of us. He held up a document. The timestamp read October 15, 2019 post-Saudi Arabia performance mnemonic sync failure. Subject, Suga. I've been forgetting things, Yoongi said. Lyrics I wrote, conversations I had. I thought it was burnout, but they were scrubbing me. Jimin entered the room, tears streaking his face. Jungkook's gone. Namjoon turned sharply. What do you mean, gone? He split after the Amsterdam extraction. Said he needed to disappear, buy us time. He left this. Jimin handed over a phone. No signal, just a video. Jungkook's face appeared, blood on his collar, eyes shining with determination. If you're seeing this, I made it out, but I'm going dark. I'm heading to Busan, to the lab. Yoongi swore. He's going back there? They buried everything in that place, Jimin said, but maybe not well enough. Jin appeared on the screen next, patched in from a new location. His eyes darted behind him as he spoke. Busan was Phase 1, he said. A medical research front funded by a South Korean defense division. The initial conditioning programs were tested on non-public trainees who were never debuted. Some didn't survive. Jimin looked sick. They used us as the successful prototypes. Worse, said Jin. They used the fans too. A silence hung thick in the room. They developed an emotional biofeedback loop, Jin continued. When a fan watches an idol, their brain releases dopamine. But the programs amplified it to facial recognition, parasocial bonding, and suggestion. It wasn't just that fans loved us. They were being shaped through us. They turned us into walking transmitters, Namjoon whispered. Emotional influence weapons. Hoseok shook his head. This isn't just abuse, this is mass manipulation, Yoongi finished. Through music, through us. And Fallon? Jimin asked. Jin's jaw tightened. He was the North American coordinator. The public face meant to normalize us, amplify the message. When Taehyung went off script, he panicked. Namjoon stood up. We're ending this. Not with a concert, not with a post. With a leak, said Taehyung's voice, emerging from the dark hallway. He looked thinner, hardened, but his fire hadn't dimmed. We have the full archive, every subject file, every internal memo, every scan of every voluntary exam. We leak it all, names, dates, files. Namjoon nodded slowly, and we put our names on it. They looked at each other not as idols, not as pawns, but as brothers, survivors. Yoongi drew a breath. They'll kill us. They already tried, said Jin. And they'll try again, Taehyung added. But if we die telling the truth, we win. Jimin wiped his eyes. Then let's make it beautiful. The final operation was codenamed Euphonia. A network of servers activated in sequence across 5 continents. Fans received timed emails with encrypted file access. Verified journalists were sent packages with physical drives. Select politicians sympathetic to whistleblower causes were pinged with legal evidence. And at midnight Seoul time, BTS uploaded their final message. A single video. 7 men, seated together, speaking to the world. Not as idols, but as human beings. We were used, Namjoon began. Conditioned, added Jimin. Modified, said Yoongi. But we are not broken, said Jungkook, patched in remotely, face raw, lips split, but smiling. They spoke for 12 minutes. No music, no cuts. Just truth. And then Taehyung, the one who started it all, ended it. I am not your product. I am not your fantasy. I am not your weapon. I am Taehyung. The screen faded. And for the first time in a generation, the world was no longer watching idols. It was listening to men. Rain hammered Seoul like a verdict. Sheets of water sluiced down the marble walls of the HYBE headquarters, now under military lockdown. Floodlights lit the entire block with artificial daylight as armored vans hissed and rolled across intersections like silent predators. Journalists were barred from approaching. Inside, the elevators had been disabled. The stairwells were under constant surveillance. But still, the air inside the building trembled. They were coming. Not for interviews. Not for apologies. For justice. The leak Operation Euphonia had ignited an international cascade of outrage and resistance. Global media finally had no choice but to acknowledge the horrifying scope of what had been done under the guise of pop culture. Lawsuits flooded Seoul's central courts. Human rights commissions opened emergency investigations. The United Nations issued a formal statement demanding full transparency from the South Korean government and any affiliated partners. Most of the BTS members had already gone underground after the leak. Jungkook had narrowly escaped capture in Busan and was now believed to be somewhere in the Philippines. Jimin was in Norway with a journalist who had promised to protect the files until his dying breath. Hoseok and Yoongi had separated, scattering their digital footprint like ashes in the wind. Namjoon and Taehyung were the only 2 still in Seoul. And they weren't hiding. They were waiting. At precisely 3:00 a.m., a black SUV pulled into an underground loading dock. The doors opened. Bang Si-hyuk stepped out, surrounded by 3 men in tactical suits and a lawyer whose smile was sharper than glass. Taehyung was standing across the parking garage alone. Until Namjoon stepped out from the shadows beside him, holding a tablet already streaming live. You're late, Taehyung said. Bang stared at him. You know this won't change anything. You've started something you can't contain. Namjoon stepped forward. We didn't start it. You did. We just decided it wasn't okay to keep dancing for you. Bang's lawyer moved to speak, but Namjoon cut him off. Save it! You're already being indicted in 6 countries. That stream's gone to every media outlet you tried to own. Bang took a step closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. You don't understand what you've done. Oh, said Taehyung. We do. That's the difference now. You're still property, Bang hissed. "There's still blood contracts, clauses. We can end your lives with the stroke of a pen." Namjoon raised his chin. "Then write it in blood, but the world already knows." A voice echoed from above. "Put down your devices and kneel." It was the Special Response Unit. Dozens of soldiers rappelled down the stairwell and dropped from ceiling catwalks. Guns up, visors down. The air turned electric with danger. Taehyung and Namjoon looked at each other. Namjoon whispered, "This is it." "No." Taehyung smiled faintly. "This is the encore." Just then, every screen in the building flickered to life. Across monitors, the final unreleased video began playing. Jin appeared first, in military uniform, sitting before a tribunal panel. The location was classified, but the confession wasn't. "My name is Kim Seokjin. I served in South Korea's compulsory military service, but I also served another master, a program designed to shape not soldiers, but celebrities, assets, influence channels." Behind him appeared clips of training exercise strains strapped to EEG machines, forced to rehearse in oxygen-depleted chambers, subjected to light and sound simulations at dangerous frequencies. It was undeniable. "You took our art," Jin continued, "and made it a weapon. But you forgot something." The camera panned out. All 7 members stood behind him. Free, defiant, whole. "You forgot we were human." All across the city, fans watched from their phones and laptops. In Paris, London, Rio, Cairo, Seoul Army flooded the streets in peaceful mass gatherings, holding signs that read, "We believe you, you're not alone, and music is not mind control." In the garage, the Special Forces team lowered their weapons. One soldier took off his helmet, revealing the purple hair of a former idol trainee. He saluted. Bang Si-hyuk turned to flee. But it was too late. He was intercepted at the stairs by Jungkook himself, bloodied but breathing, holding the original hard drive to the Busan Lab's full records. He dropped it at Bang's feet. "Let's see how well your lawyers dance," Jungkook whispered. Over the following weeks, international courts indicted key players involved in the idol doctrine. Entertainment executives, military scientists, broadcasting gatekeepers, even government officials who had greenlit experiments under the pretense of cultural advancement. The BTS members testified together, no longer as entertainers, but as survivors. They told stories of memory loss, psychological abuse, isolation, and programming masked as wellness retreats. But they also spoke of brotherhood, of the music that had kept them tethered to reality, of the millions who sang their words back to them even when they'd been hollowed out. Their fans' army hadn't just saved them. They had fought for them. HYBE was dissolved, all contracts declared void. A new coalition of artists formed, the Seven Foundation, a collective to protect young talent, ensure psychological safety in entertainment, and build ethical boundaries in a world that had blurred humanity with product. The K-pop industry didn't die. It was reborn, with truth stitched into every beat. Jin returned to farming. Yoongi produced music again, this time for underground independent artists. Hoseok traveled the world teaching dance therapy to traumatized youth. Jimin opened a healing arts center in Daegu. Jungkook disappeared for a time, surfacing only in rare videos of him teaching boxing to kids on island coasts. Namjoon lectured at global conferences on the ethics of media and mass influence. And Taehyung? He stood on a quiet stage one evening. No lights, no cameras, just a piano and a mic. He sang one song, a new one. No auto-tune. No backing track. Just voice. And when the final note faded, he whispered into the silence. "We're still here. Not idols. Not ghosts. But men. Alive. Free. And heard."